physics, is a negotiation. Usually when an object moves from point A to point B, we can calculate the cost: fuel, muscle, energy. But sometimes nature breaks the contract. A farmer is walking the perimeter of his field. It's late afternoon. The sky is a bruised purple, clearing up after a storm that never really broke. He stops. There, high in the branches of an old oak tree, something is hanging. It's not a leaf. It's too heavy. It flaps against the bark with a wet, heavy thud. The farmer climbs. He pulls it down. It's a coat. A heavy wool winter coat. Now, this is strange. Because it is May. It is nearly summer in the American South. No one is wearing wool. He checks the inner pocket. There is a letter inside. No one is wearing wool. He checks the inner pocket. There is a letter inside. And a name. The farmer freezes. He knows the name, but that's impossible. The man who owns this coat lives in Trezevant to me. Trezevant is 20 miles away. A heavy wool coat cannot fly 20 miles. Not on the wind. Not by itself. To move a 5-pound object 20 miles across the curvature of the earth requires a force that, frankly, the human mind in 1917 isn't ready to comprehend. He doesn't know it yet, but the man who owns that coat, the man 20 miles away, he isn't missing his jacket. He is dead. And he wasn't just killed. He was erased. This is the story of the dry death. Welcome to the Tennessee Cyclone Sequence. A hurricane gives you a week. A flood gives you rising water. Even a typical thunderstorm gives you the courtesy of blocking out the sun. But the horror of May 27, 1917, lies in its beauty. Let's move south. 25 miles from where that coat was found. We are just outside Dyersburg, Tennessee. There is a camp set up near the edge of town, a community of travelers. History has forgotten their names, referred to in the papers only as gypsy camp. But we know their habits. If you live on the road, you survive by reading the sky. You know that a halo around the moon means rain. You know that if the campfire smoke stays low, the pressure is dropping. You are the original meteorologists. It is 2 p.m. The families are preparing for the evening. Men are tending to the horses, the lifeblood of their community. Women are washing clothes. And the sun is shining. It is a hot, sticky afternoon. According to the survivors, it was picnic weather. But look closer. The horses know. Witnesses would later say the herd was restless, not panicking, just twitching, ears swiveling to catch a sound that humans couldn't hear. The travelers are experts. They fear rain. Rain turns roads to mud. Mud means you're stuck. So they watch the clouds. They are looking up. But they should have been watching the dirt. There is a concept in psychology called normalcy bias. It is the brain's refusal to accept a disaster that has never happened to it before. When the volcano erupts, people stop to film it. When the ship sinks, people order another drink. And when the barometer bottoms out on a sunny Sunday afternoon, the travelers in Dyersburg simply continue to wash their clothes. They've survived storms before. They've ridden out gales and floods. But they didn't know that their wagons, their homes, were currently parked directly in the crosshairs of a phenomenon that wouldn't even have a scientific name for another 50 years. But 3 miles away, the air was beginning to rotate. To understand why this day, why this specific Sunday, became a slaughterhouse, we have to look at the map. The world is at war. The newspapers are full of trenches in France and U-boats in the Atlantic. But in the American Midwest, a different kind of war is being declared. Meteorologists call it a sequence, but in late May 1917, the atmosphere didn't fire a shotgun. It fired a machine gun. May 25th, Kansas. Destruction. May 26th, Illinois. Specifically, the Mattoon-Charleston horror, 101 dead. And now, May 27th. Think of the atmosphere over Tennessee, not as air, but as a spring. For 3 days, a La Niña weather pattern has been cranking that spring tighter and tighter. Cold, dry air from the Rockies is diving south. It is the spark. Usually, these two air masses mix slowly. They wrestle. We get thunderstorms. But today there is a cap. A layer of warm air sitting on top of the atmosphere, pressing down like a lid on a boiling pot. It's preventing the clouds from rising. It's keeping the sky blue. It's lying. It is a loaded gun, pointed directly at the earth. And the trigger is about to be pulled. We are about to enter the impact zone of one of history's most deceptive storms. We are going to break down the timeline, the physics, and the forensic tragedy of the 1917 sequence. Because what happens next doesn't just break buildings. It breaks the rules of survival. A man looks at his pocket watch. 2:30 p.m. He wipes sweat from his forehead. It feels strangely electric. The hair on his arms is standing up. He looks west. He doesn't see a tornado. He sees a smudge, a small dark blemish against the blue sky. It's low, very low, maybe only a few hundred feet off the ground. He frowns. Is it a fire? He takes a step forward to get a better look. He doesn't call a warning. He doesn't scream. Because his brain cannot process what he is seeing. He assumes it's a brush fire. He doesn't know that he is looking at an F4 monster that has stripped the rain away to reveal its skeleton. And he certainly doesn't know that he has exactly 90 seconds to live. Years later, he would give an interview that chills the blood of every modern storm chaser. He said, the sun was shining. He said, there was no rain. He said, I saw the cloud. It wasn't high. It was right there, on the ground, rolling like a black boiling barrel. This is the dry execution. In a modern storm, you have the bear's cage. The rain wraps around the tornado, hiding it. You can't see death coming until it's on your porch. This is worse, because you can see it, and because it looks so small against the blue sky, you don't respect it. At the traveler camp, the horses start to scream. The smudge on the horizon isn't a smudge anymore. It has grown. It has widened. And suddenly, the blue sky vanishes. Not because of clouds, but because the dirt of Tennessee is being lifted into the heavens. He yells, finally, move! But move where? They are in a field. There are no basements. There are no storm cellars. They are exposed. The roar is deafening now. It's not just wind. It's the sound of thousands of trees being pulverized into toothpicks. It's the sound of the earth being pulverized into toothpicks. It's the sound of the earth being chewed. They run. They run toward the only thing that looks like it might hold. Concrete drainage pipes. Culverts. Half buried in the ditch. They are small, tight, dark. But they are concrete. Mothers push their children inside. Fathers shove them deeper. The pipes are cramped. They smell of mold and stagnant water. Outside, the light goes out. The sun is gone. The birds are gone. As they huddle in the dark, pressing their hands over their ears, they feel the ground shake. They think they've made the right choice. They think the concrete will save them. But they forgot one thing. A tornado is a vacuum, and if you are inside a pipe and the pressure outside drops, the pipe doesn't just protect you. It can become a cannon. We survive by recognizing threats we have seen before. If we see a snake, we jump. If we see fire, we run. We have millions of years of genetic coding that tells us what danger looks like. But on May 27, 1917, near Trezevant, Tennessee, Bruce Bryant walked out onto his porch and saw something that his brain had no file for. Bruce Bryant is our anchor. He is a pragmatic man, a farmer. He is not prone to exaggeration, and his testimony is vital because it shatters the modern image of a tornado. Bruce Bryant didn't have rain. He didn't have hail. He had the sun. The sky above him was a brilliant, mocking blue. The sun was hot on his neck, but to the west, the physics of the world were breaking down. Bryant described it as a boiling mass. Let's pause on that image. Boiling. Usually, clouds float at 2,000, 3,000 feet. This cloud was 150 yards off the deck. That is 450 feet. That is low enough to see the texture of the vapor. It was black, not gray. Black, like coal smoke. And it was tumbling over itself, a rolling barrel of condensed violence, chewing its way across the horizon. Bruce Bryant stands on his porch. He grips the railing. The wood is warm. He should run. But the normalcy bias has him in a chokehold. The sun is shining. How can you die when the sun is shining? It feels like a glitch in reality. A bad dream where the monster walks into your living room in the middle of a birthday party. He watches it. He is paralyzed by the sheer wrongness of it. Then he sees the debris field. Because the ground is dry, the tornado isn't kicking up mud. It is pulverizing dry clay. It is creating a dust cloud that acts like a sandblaster. And then the sound changes. It crosses the threshold of hearing. It stops being a sound and starts being a sensation. It vibrates his teeth. It rattles the coins in his pocket. The atmosphere is being sucked into the vortex at 200 miles per hour. The pressure around his house begins to drop. His ears pop. Painfully. Like diving into deep water. He doesn't run to a storm cellar. He doesn't have time. He throws himself flat on the floorboards of his porch. He presses his face into the wood. He smells the dust. He smells the approaching ozone, that sharp, metallic scent of lightning without the thunder. And he waits for the locomotive to run him over. 3 miles away. The traveler camp. We are inside the culvert. It is dark. The only light comes from the open ends of the pipe. 2 circles of terrified brightness bookending their prison. There are 4 families and 4 different pipes. The air inside is stale. It smells of damp moss and old earth. They can hear the destruction of their camp. It is a specific, agonizing acoustic torture. They know every sound. That was a cooking pot, thrown at 100 miles an hour against a tree. They hold their breath. They press their backs against the cold curve of the concrete. The father, the leader of this specific wagon, is closest to the opening. He is the plug. He is using his body to shield his wife and children behind him. He watches the circle of light at the end of the tunnel. And then the light turns black. The tornado is overhead. We talk about wind speed. We talk about wind speed. We talk about F-scales. But we rarely talk about pressure. A tornado is a low-pressure core. It is a vacuum cleaner the size of a mountain. When the eye passes over the culvert, the laws of physics turn against the family inside. The pipe becomes a wind tunnel. The father feels his coat being pulled. He feels his skin being pulled. The air is being ripped out of their lungs. They are gasping, not because the air is toxic, but because the air is leaving. Debris starts to fly through the pipe. Rocks, dirt, splinters. They are essentially inside the barrel of a shotgun while the trigger is being pulled. In the darkness, something hits him. It's soft. It's heavy. He thinks it's his daughter. He reaches out, terrified, grabbing in the blackness. His hand touches fur. A stray dog from the camp has been sucked into the pipe with them. Man and beast, huddled in a concrete tube, while the world above them is scrubbed clean. They are alive. For now. But the storm isn't done. It is just finishing its appetizer. It is moving toward Tiptonville. And it is hungry. The tornado exits the traveler camp. It has consumed the wagons. It has scattered the horses. It crosses the fields toward Tiptonville and Bondurant. Now, we need to talk about the speed of destruction. When we watch disaster movies, buildings crumble slowly. We see the bricks fall one by one. Real destruction happens in the blink of an eye. A house doesn't fall down. It explodes. Let's slow it down. Let's freeze time at the moment of impact for a farmhouse in Bondurant. The outer wall is hit by a wind gust of 200 miles per hour. The wood doesn't break immediately. It bends. The nails holding the siding to the frame, they get hot. Friction. They scream as they are pulled from the grain. The roof acts like an airplane wing. The wind moves faster over the top than the bottom. This creates lift. Massive lift. The roof isn't blown off. It is sucked up. Once the roof is gone, the structural integrity fails. The walls have nothing to hold them. They collapse outward. The furniture inside, it is now part of the atmosphere. A dining room table. A heavy oak piece. It is lifted. It spins. It becomes a missile. And inside this chaos are the people. Let's go to Una, Tennessee, to the home of Miss Maggie Moran. Maggie is in her kitchen. She is 24 years old. She is wearing a sturdy pair of leather shoes, laced tight. She hears the roar. She reaches for the door frame. The wall she is holding disappears. She is airborne. Human flight is a terrifying thing. You have no control. You are debris. Maggie is thrown 15 feet. That doesn't sound like far. It's the length of a car. But in a tornado, 15 feet is a gauntlet of flying timber, glass, and metal. She lands in a pile of felled trees, but she doesn't just land. The storm slams her down. And then, it slams a log on top of her. Her left leg is pinned. She screams. But the wind swallows it. She tries to pull her leg free. She pulls. She thrashes. The adrenaline is pumping so hard she can't feel pain yet. She just feels the trap. The wind is still pulling at her and wants to take her with it. It is tugging at her clothes, her hair, her limbs. It grabs her right foot. Now, remember, she is wearing leather shoes, laced tight, double knotted. The tornado rips the shoe off her foot. It doesn't untie it. It tears the leather apart. It strips it from her body with such violence that the shoe is never found. She is left with one foot pinned, the other bare and bleeding, held down by the weight of a fallen forest while the locomotive roars overhead. This is the peak. This is the monster feeding. Tiptonville, Bondurant, Anna. Communities turned into shrapnel. And then, as quickly as it started, the silence is worse than the noise. The noise is adrenaline. The noise is battle. The silence is the scoreboard. Bruce Bryant lifts his head from the porch floorboards. He is covered in a layer of fine dust. It's in his eyes. It's in his mouth. He coughs. He stands up. He looks out at his farm. The sun comes back out. The dry death has passed. The black barrel has rolled on toward the horizon, leaving a scar on the earth a quarter-mile wide. Bryant looks at his barn. It's gone. Not damaged. Gone. The foundation is swept clean. He looks at the trees. The ones that are left are stripped of their bark. They look like white skeletons pointing at the sky. The sounds of humanity begin to return. But they are the wrong sounds. They are names being called out. They are the screams of discovery. Back at the culvert, the father pushes. The pipe is blocked by debris. He has to kick his way out. He emerges into the light. He pulls his wife out. Then his children. They are gray, covered in dust, shaking, but alive. They stand up and look at the camp. There is no camp. The wagons are matchsticks. The cooking pots are gone. The clothes they were washing are gone. And the herd, the horses, they scan the field. They expect bodies. They expect gore. But they find isolation. 500 yards away, a single horse is standing. It is the only one left. The others were carried away, lifed into the sky and deposited somewhere else. This horse is trembling. It is covered in mud, but it is standing. The father walks toward it. He needs to touch it. He needs to verify that something from his old life still exists. He puts his hand on the horse's flank. The animal doesn't move. It is in shock. This is the moment where the adrenaline fades and the horror sets in. This is the moment where the adrenaline fades and the horror sets in. This is the moment where Maggie Moran looks down at her bare foot. This is the moment where the farmer in Henry County, 20 miles away, sees a coat flying through the air. The storm is over, but the mystery of what it took and where it put it is just beginning. Night falls differently on a disaster zone. Usually, sunset is a relief. It marks the end of the workday, the beginning of rest. But in Tiptonville, in Bondurant, in the scattered remains of the traveler camp, the sunset on May 27th is not a relief. It is a curtain closing on a stage that has been demolished. The electricity, what little there was in 1917, is gone. The telegraph lines are down. The world has shrunk to the radius of a kerosene lantern. Imagine that light. It is yellow, flickering. It throws long, dancing shadows against the ruins. The survivors are moving through this darkness. They are not looking for possessions. They are looking for people. The acoustics of the aftermath are haunting. Because the trees are gone, because the buildings are flattened, sound carries forever. A mother calling for her child in Bondurant can be heard across fields that used to be separated by forests. The landscape has been stripped naked. This is the uncanny valley of storm damage. When the searchers walk through the fields, they find things that defy logic. Physics has played a joke on them. A searcher shines his light on a fence post. He leans in closer. Embedded in the hard oak of the fence post is a piece of wheat straw. It hasn't been glued there. It has been driven into the wood, like a nail. Think about the velocity required to turn a piece of dry grass into a projectile capable of piercing oak. It requires speeds of over 200 miles per hour. It requires the straw to be moving so fast that the wood doesn't have time to shatter, it simply yields. The searcher touches it. He shivers. Not from the cold, but from the realization that the air itself had turned into a weapon. They find chickens, alive, but stripped completely of their feathers, plucked clean by the wind, standing dazed in the dirt. They find a jar of pickles, sitting on a fence rail, unbroken, while the house it belonged to has splinters across the county. This is the caprice of the tornado. It is a selective killer. It takes the roof, but leaves the lamp. It takes the husband, but spares the wife. At the traveler camp, the families are gathering what is left. They have their lives. They have their lives. They have the one surviving horse. But they have lost their anonymity. The locals, the people of Dyersburg, are coming out with lanterns. They are coming to help. In 1917, these two communities didn't mix, the townspeople and the travelers. There was suspicion. There were barriers. But the wind doesn't care about social hierarchy. The storm has erased the boundaries. Tonight, there are no travelers. There are no townsfolk. There are only the living and the missing. And the missing are very far away. Let's go back to the coat. Remember the farmer in Henry County? The man standing under the tree 20 miles away, holding a damp wool jacket? He is looking at the letter in the pocket. He reads the name again. The name belongs to a resident of Trezevant. The farmer does the math in his head. Trezevant is a long ride, a hard ride. He walks back to his house. He saddles his horse. He rides toward the storm. He rides against the path of the debris. He is following the trail of breadcrumbs back to the witch's house. As he gets closer to Trezevant, the world changes. At mile 5, he sees branches down. At mile 10, he sees trees snapped in half. At mile 15, he sees the scar. He arrives in Trezevant. He finds the family of the man whose name is in the coat. He walks up to them. He is holding the jacket like a flag of truce. I found this, he says, in my tree, 20 miles east. The family looks at the coat. They recognize it. It was hanging in the hallway. But the man who wore it, he wasn't in the hallway. He was found in a hallway. He was found in a field, a quarter mile from the house. Here is the chilling part. Here's the detail that keeps meteorologists awake at night. The coat was found 20 miles away. The man was found a quarter mile away. The house was gone. The tornado had stripped the house apart, layer by layer. It had taken the coat from the hook, lifted it into the updraft, and carried it into the stratosphere. It had carried it through the freezing temperatures of the upper atmosphere, which is why the farmer felt it was damp and cold. It traveled at 10,000 feet, sailing over the county line, before the updraft weakened and dropped it gently into an oak tree. It is a message in a bottle, sent from hell. This phenomenon, long-distance debris, is the signature of a violent tornado. In 1917, they didn't have the Fujita scale. They couldn't rate wind speed. But the coat tells us everything. To lift the heavy wool coat 20 miles, You need an updraft speed of over 150 miles per hour. You need a storm that is breathing like a living giant. This wasn't just a tornado. This was a long-track supercell, and it wasn't alone. We need to zoom out. We need to look at the map of the United States in May 1917. Because if you look at the dates, you realize that May 27th wasn't an accident. It was an inevitable mathematical result. May 25th, May 26th, May 26th, May 27th, May 27th, May 28th, May 29th, May 30th, June 1st, 8 days, 8 consecutive days of violent tornadoes. In modern meteorology, we call this a sequence, usually a storm sift scoop. It hits Oklahoma on Monday, Missouri, on Tuesday, and by Wednesday it's blowing out into the Atlantic Ocean. The energy dissipates, the atmosphere stabilizes. But in 1917, the atmosphere got stuck. Imagine a train on a track. The train is the storm system. The track is the storm system. The track is the jet stream, the river of fast-moving air high in the sky that steers the weather. Usually, the track is wavy. It moves the storms along. But in late May 1917, the track straightened out. It became a zonal flow, west to east, fast, straight, and it stalled. It parked itself right over the Midwest, and every single day the sun would come up. It would heat the ground, the hot air would rise. It would hit that cap, that lid we talked about earlier. It would build pressure, and every single afternoon at roughly 3 p.m., the cap would break. The atmosphere would explode, and because the system wasn't moving, it happened again the next day, and the next. It was a conveyor belt of violence. The people of Tiptonville, the travelers in Dyersburg, the farmers in Trezevant, Dyersburg, the farmers in Trezevant, they were living under a broken machine, a machine that was stuck on the destroy cycle. And remember, they were blind. No radar, no satellites, no warning sirens. The only warning system in 1917 was the telephone operator. But tornadoes destroy telephone lines, so the warning dies with the first town. The town 10 miles down the road, they are deaf. When the storm hit the traveler camp, nobody in Trezevant knew it was coming. They were washing dishes. They were reading the paper. They were waiting for the train to hit them. The 1917 sequence is the longest continuous tornado outbreak in recorded history. 8 days. We haven't seen anything like it since. Even the 2011 super outbreak. That was a few days. 1917 was a week of siege warfare. And when it was over, when the skies finally cleared on June 2nd, the map of the Midwest had to be redrawn. What do we learn from the ghosts in the field? What do we take away from Maggie Moran's missing shoe? From the coat in the tree? From the horse standing alone in the ruins of the traveler camp? We learn humility. We live in an age of mastery. We split the atom. We map the genome. We carry the sum of human knowledge in our pockets. We look at the weather app on our phone and we see the future. We see the red polygon. We see the cone of uncertainty. We feel safe. But the atmosphere is older than us. It is bigger than us. It is bigger than us. It is a chaotic fluid system that wraps the planet in a chaotic embrace. The story of May 27, 1917 is a reminder that normal is a fragile illusion. Those people woke up to a sunny day. They made coffee. They argued with their spouses. They worried about money. They didn't know that the sky had other plans. The dry death teaches us that danger doesn't always look like danger. Sometimes, it looks like a beautiful afternoon. Sometimes, the monster doesn't roar until it is already in the room. The travelers in the culvert survived because they respected the wind. They didn't wait. They didn't stare. They moved. In the end, that is the only defense we have. Respect. When the sky turns green. When the birds stop singing. When the hair on your arms stands up. Don't negotiate. Don't rationalize. Just run. We move north. We follow the storm as it crosses the state line. We enter the legal battle that followed the destruction. How do you insure a house against an act of God? I'm your host, and this has been the story of the Sunlit monster.